I cast you out, unclean spirit. It is the power of Christ that compels you. The power of Christ 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 compels you! The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Hi, I'm Bobby, and today we're talking about a movie that I have very special memories of, The Exorcist. I used to work at a haunted house where I played the priest in the Exorcist room, and we had so much fun. And on Halloween, as we turned onto the street where the haunted house was, the Exorcist music started playing on the radio. I felt like Father Mayor, and that's my theme song. Now, The Exorcist has a reputation of being the scariest movie of all time. And whether you agree or not, no horror fan should go without watching it. One of the greatest comedians of all time was Groucho Marx. With his brothers, he performed in vaudeville, Broadway, and the movies. When they got older and stopped making films, he became the star of his own game show, You Bet Your Life. And on February 9th, 1961, he had a rather unique guest, a man named Bill Blatty, who was working in public relations by day, writing comedy on the side, and by night was going around Hollywood parties, passing himself off as an Arabian prince. And he wanted to see if he could trick Groucho. Groucho saw through it. But this bogus prince ended up winning $5,000. And with the money, he was able to quit his day job, become a full-time writer, with his most famous book being The Exorcist. Blatty had been kicking around the idea since 1949, when he was a junior at Georgetown University. And at the university's hospital, there was a priest conducting an exorcism on a 13-year-old boy named Robbie, who was apparently possessed by a demon. As you can imagine, word got out, and it became the talk of the campus. Years later, Blatty made contact with one of Robbie's exorcists, Father William Bowdern, to ask him some questions, but the cardinal wouldn't allow it. But he did tell Blatty one thing. The case I was involved in was the real thing. I had no doubt about it then, I have no doubt about it now. The novel became a bestseller. Warner Brothers bought the film rights, and Blatty himself did the screenplay. But production did not go smoothly. Jason Miller, who played Father Karras, used to go to this restaurant to study his lines, and an elderly priest went up to him and gave him this medal of the Blessed Virgin. And the priest said to him, "I want to tell you about intervention. It's a Gnostic concept from the 15th century, and if you do anything on the devil that reveals him as the trickster that he is, he will seek retribution against you, or even try to stop what you're doing. This medal will protect you. Take care of yourself." 3 days later, Miller saw the priest dead, lying in a casket. When no one was at the studio, the set caught on fire and burnt down, and they were never able to figure out why. And 9 people, including cast, crew, and relatives of the cast and crew, died during production. And speaking for myself, when the owner of my haunted house was designing the Exorcist room, he had the DVD in for inspiration, and the TV kept turning off and on for no reason. Now, I know that's not as dramatic as the 9 people dying, but it certainly gave us the willies. Actress Regan Macneil is making a movie in Washington, D.C. Trouble already. And her daughter, the 12-year-old Regan, has been playing the seemingly harmless game of Ouija. Chris has been hearing strange sounds from the attic, and Regan's behavior has gone from odd to unbelievable to violent. Chris takes her to several doctors for multiple tests, but there are no conclusive results. Running out of options and explaining that it is purely psychosomatic, the doctor brings up demonic possession and the ritual of exorcism. Chris's director, Burke Dennings, dies from falling down the stairs outside of Regan's window. Chris doesn't say it, but she knows Regan killed him. Chris goes to Father Damien Karras and asks about exorcism. At first he's skeptical, but after seeing Regan and hearing Chris's plea, he collects the evidence and goes to his church. They approve the exorcism, and call on Father Merrin to be the exorcist. The two priests perform the ritual, but for Karras, the demon is more terrifying than he ever imagined. What makes The Exorcist so scary is how real it all seems, and the director, Bill Friedkin, came from a documentary background and made that his intention. A lot of the shots are done in the documentary style. There's not a lot of background music, and some of the cast members are actually amateurs, more or less playing themselves. Some of the stunts went awry and the actors were in real pain. And to get startled reactions, Bill Friedkin would shoot off guns, and he even slapped Father O'Malley across the face. The story is told realistically too. Regan meets this demon through a Ouija board, which is exactly what happened to the real kid Robbie. They do medical tests on her, which again would really happen. Also, there are these subplots about desecrations in the church, and there's this kind of goofy detective named Kinderman running around trying to solve the Burke Dennings murder. Now these have nothing to do with the main story, and could have easily been cut, but they show how the outside world would respond to these supernatural events. Father, Burke Dennings was found at the bottom of those steps leading to Elm Street, with his head turned completely around, facing backwards. So on one hand we have a witchcraft kind of murder, another black mass desecration of the church. Maybe somebody crazy with some spite against the church. Father, for the priests on campus, you're the psychiatrist. You would know if someone was sick at the time. I don't know anyone who fits that description. Hey Father, do you like movies? Do you want to see Othello with me?
Who's in it?
Who's in it? Debbie Reynolds does Zamona and Othello Groucho Marx. Are you happy? Look, one last time. Can you think of any priest that fits the bill? Answer the question, Father Paranoia. You know who I think really did it? The Dominicans. Go pick on them. Notice the Groucho reference? So you feel like you're getting all the things that would actually happen, and not just a scary story. By being so authentic to life, and to what would happen in life, it makes the scary scenes more frightening, because they feel authentic too. What adds even more to the scary parts is the spectacular practical effects. They spent a year making this movie to make them look good. To show the actors' breath in the Exorcist room, they used 4 air conditioners freezing the set every night, and that real cold adds to the atmosphere in a way that CGI wouldn't. The subject matter is creepy, but it's how they treat it that puts it over the edge. And so does Regan Macneil. Regan Macneil is an iconic movie monster, and it was a collaborative effort to turn this 12-year-old girl, Linda Blair, into a demon. In the beginning, she's cute and innocent. Her parents were recently separated, so she's especially close to her mother. But as the possession takes effect, her eyes start to glaze over, and her body violently convulses. And as it gets worse, her body transforms. Dick Smith did the makeup, and the idea was that during the scene when she's cutting herself with the crucifix, the scars would not heal and would develop gangrene. She'll attack people and vomit on them, and for those scenes, they used the more physically powerful 28-year-old Eileen Dietz. They also used her for the creepy Captain Howdy face. They strap Regan to the bed, but the demon is still able to use deception to attack psychologically and spiritually. Let's introduce ourselves. I'm Damian Karras.
I'm the devil. Now kindly undo these straps.
Did you do that? Do it again.
In time.
No, now.
It's what you vulgarly display on my power. Your mother's in here with us, Karras. Would you care to leave her a message? I'll see that she gets it.
Now, when the demon is speaking, Linda's voice is dubbed over by Mercedes McCambridge. Mercedes, who was from Joliet, Illinois, was a movie star, and in the words of Orson Welles, was the greatest old-time radio actress. She knew how to scare people with just her voice. She did it on spooky-themed radio shows like Inner Sanctum and I Love a Mystery, and this was a return to her expertise. She had been an alcoholic but had quit. But to do the demon voice, she started drinking whiskey again, she started chain smoking, and she would swallow raw eggs. and they call Wheaties breakfast of champions. And that thickness in her phlegm, combined with her already unique voice and incredible talent, allowed her to create this guttural sound of evil, with sometimes 2 or 3 sounds coming out at once. Let's take a listen.
What an excellent day for an exorcism. And I'm the devil. Now kindly undo these straps.
How adorable. Now the demon's breathing is this revolting sound heard throughout the entire house. And to do this, she just replicated the wheezing that she used to do whenever she was suffering from bronchitis. And that's what makes her voice so spooky. It sounds like she's from the pits of hell, but it also sounds natural. Now along with the villain, there's also the hero, Father Damien Karras, played by Jason Miller. He's a priest, a psychiatrist, and a boxer. He kind of looks like Rocky. So he's strong spiritually, mentally, and physically. But presently, he's in a moment of weakness. Because he's a priest, he can't afford adequate hospitalization for his ailing mother. He lives far from her, and she dies alone. He feels guilty, and the demon knows it, and uses it against him. When him and Marin are conducting the exorcism, he loses it, and Marin tells him to leave. But when Marin dies, he's the only hope, and uses all of his strengths to defeat the demon.
Take me! Take me! Take me! Take me! No!
His vulnerability makes him relatable, but to save Regan, he sacrifices himself, which makes him admirable. And he's one of my favorite horror movie heroes. Now, as deep as the characters are, and as arty and spiritual as the movie is, it never forgets that it's a spook picture. So just like Dracula or Freddy Krueger, Regan Macneil has tons of awesome lines.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
There's a lot more. I'm not going to say them because they all have dirty words, but trust me, they're zingers. There are groovy moments, like when her head spins around and faces backwards, and when she throws up pea soup. The spooky lighting is great. Just look at this shot. The bedroom is so atmospheric, especially during the exorcism scenes. And even before the Exorcist came to town, these steps had a reputation for being spooky. They used to call them the Hitchcock steps, now they're the Exorcist steps. And there's even a Halloween scene with trick-or-treaters. So in addition to all the weighty elements that give it depth, it still has all the fun things that horror fans love. The movie was a record breaker financially, with people waiting in line for hours and hours to see it, sometimes even in the rain. And then some would get so scared that they had to leave the theater. People would vomit and even faint. Now some were so offended by the movie that Linda Blair had to have bodyguards for 6 months after it was released. Warner Brothers wanted to make it seem like it was all Linda Blair, so neither Mercedes McCambridge or Eileen Dietz got screen credit. Mercedes sued, and then so did Eileen. Mercedes won and got screen credit. Eileen lost, but Eileen still gets royalty checks from the movie, which a normal double would not get. The Arabian Prince, aka William Peter Blatty, disagreed with a few of Bill Friedkin's creative decisions. And in 2000, they released The Exorcist, the version you've never seen, which includes the scenes that Blatty wanted, like the spider walk scene and some of the doctor visit scenes, that Friedkin cut from the film. I do have a preference for the version you've never seen. It has a couple more scares and more of that realism, but honestly, both versions are great. By the way, on my Blu-ray, and maybe others, it is mistakenly labeled Extended Director's Cut, but it's really the writer's cut, and the original version is the director's cut. The Exorcist has launched sequels, parodies, and even a television series, and has become part of our pop culture. Now, I got to meet Linda Blair at a special screening of The Exorcist, and I gotta tell you, the movie's great on television, But if you can, see it in the movie theater. It's a whole other experience being totally immersed in it, and it really is at its scariest. Now, I have a friend who's older, and he actually got to meet Mercedes McCambridge. And she did the, "Your mother blank blank in hell" line for him. So I give The Exorcist 4 buckets of green vomit out of 4. Thank you for watching Dusty Yellow Movies. And gee, Halloween's coming up so fast, it'll make your head spin.